This is just a quick extra video just to experiment with this style of video, which I've never done before. I do feel a bit like a bargain basement Big Clive right at the moment. Big Clive, if you're not familiar with him, I thoroughly recommend his channel. I'm a big fan. And this is the really rubbish version by comparison. But anyway, I just wanted to show you what I've done with these TL-160S lights that I talked about in a different video on building up my midlife crisis studio, I've called it. And these lights are great. I got 4 of them in a set. 4 lights, 4 batteries, 4 tripods, and I think it came with 2 chargers in a carry bag, and all for about £80. So a fantastic deal, really. Effectively £20 per light, battery, and tripod. But what I was finding, and it's not the light's fault or the battery's fault, is that because I'm new to all of this, I was setting everything up, and just when I got everything how I wanted it, and done this experiment, that experiment, moved this light, that light, the other light, that's when the battery would run out. Or that's when I'd discover that I'd forgotten to charge them, and that's when the battery would run out. And of course, then you've got to wait for the batteries to charge. And it was just really winding me up. And I just thought, surely there's got to be some way around this. Well, there is. You could just buy a more expensive light with a mains adapter socket on it, because if you look on the back of this, there isn't one. That's not necessarily because only expensive ones have them, but these were very cheap and in a very good deal. And yeah, they don't come with any way of plugging a mains adapter into this. So I was just having a mull one night, and I remembered that my first camcorder also didn't have any way of plugging it directly into the mains, but the way they got around that was that they actually supplied you with a special type of mains adapter where it kind of had like a fake battery, a dummy battery, and that dummy battery went onto the back of the camcorder, and then the other end of it connected to a mains adapter. So that's how they got around that. So they didn't have a separate mains adapter socket, but they had a dummy battery that went onto the back. And I thought, I wonder if anything, surely nothing like that exists, really, does it? So I had a bit of a search around. It took a couple of goes, but yes, it does. And there it is. And yeah, the moulding on it is not perfect. It's not terrible, but it's not perfect. So it's a much tighter fit than the original battery. But it's designed for an NP F550 battery to be replacement. And it's pretty much there, isn't it? You can see, same size. Doesn't really matter what's on the back. It's not the same design, but it's the same shape. And it's got a mains adapter socket. So what you can do is convert this light into a mains powered light. Now, on the back of this, it says 6.5 to 8.5 volts that it can take, and 0.12 to 1.6 amps. So I thought to myself, well, this adapter that I already had laying around isn't going to cut it. And so chances are, you may already have a multi-voltage adapter lying around, it's probably not going to cut it. There are some that I remember having one that was an 800 milliamp one lying around, and that was huge. It's an old one. It still works. Even that's not really going to cut it. I mean, yes, you could use the lamps on the dimmest setting, but you don't know exactly what current that's using without a multimeter or something. So to be on the safe side, you need something that's going to handle that current. So what I did was I went on to CPC and got these. Now, it's not quite at the upper limit. It's 1.5 amps that this power adapter gives out. But it's got a 7.5 volt setting, and that's within the range. I had another adapter that wasn't quite up to the current rating, but it might have managed, maybe about 1 amp, and that might have done. But you couldn't set it to 7.5 volts. You could either set it to 6 or 9 volts, both of which are outside the range of the light, which is 6.5 to 8.5 volts, and I didn't want to risk it, really. At 9 volts, I didn't want to risk it, definitely, and at 6 volts, it wouldn't have worked, because this is actually a very intelligent light. I plugged it into a USB lead. That was another failed experiment. I'd assumed that this was doing the voltage conversion, but it wasn't. This is basically just connecting the terminals of the battery to this in a nice plastic box that resembles the shape of the original battery. That's all it's doing. It's not doing any voltage conversion whatsoever. So I plugged it in. It didn't complain. It did complain. It didn't break. it just flashed on the back and turned on very dim and refused to go any brighter. So yeah, but that's under voltage. Over voltage is a lot more harmful. So yeah, what you can do is you can put this on the back. As I say, it is a very tight fit, so I'm a bit worried about the glue here. I can sort of feel the two halves of this separating when I try and put it in. But if you're planning on using these semi-permanently on the mains, that won't really be a huge issue. You need to set this to 7.5 volts with the little key. Now, what I like about this is that it's harder to accidentally set it to the wrong voltage. The downside is don't lose this key because you won't be able to change it. I suppose you could use like a screwdriver or something maybe. It comes with these 6 tips. You'll need the biggest of the 6 tips because the dummy battery has a 5.5 millimeter outer diameter and a 2.5 millimeter inner diameter. That just happens to be this one. And what you want to do is make sure the polarity is matched as well. So there's a little arrow on this and there's a little arrow on this, and that corresponds to which side, which polarity you've got. So I need to have a center positive tip polarity, which is that side. That goes in there. And if you've got, so basically there's arrows on both sides of this adapter tip. You need to line that up with the arrow on this. And then let me find a spare socket. And then plug that into there. I've got 2 of these on the go actually. One of them I'm using right now off the mains, and it's been running for about half hour, no problems. The only issue it had was that this when this wobbled, it turned off. But this particular one seems to be okay, and there you go. Mains powered, converted TL-160S, Travor TL-160S, with a dummy battery on 7.5 volts. And I mentioned that the adapter only goes up to 1.5 amps, and the rating on the back of this says up to 1.6, but I think that's because of the voltage range. If you're on 6.5 volts, then you're pushing it on a 1.5 amp adapter. But again, I can't even set it to 6.5 volts. 6 volts would be too low. At 7.5 volts, it's fine. I'll double check the figures, but it's below the 1.5 amps maximum that the mains adapter can give out. So I'm not expecting any problems really with that. The running power of these lights is meant to be 11 watts. That's how I worked out the numbers. So yeah, very happy with that.